Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's podcast, Taking Care of Business Today, with Elton Ash, who is executive vice president of RE/MAX Canada. Thanks, Elton, for joining us.
Great to be with you, Mario.
Well, an interesting report that RE/MAX has just put out on commercial real estate activity in the country. First of all, let me just start by asking you a general question, Elton. On how would you describe the commercial real estate market in Canada these days?
Well, on the national picture, it's vibrant. I mean, people want to do deals, whether you're a lessor, leasee, landlord, office tenant, retail, industrial. There's a real desire to put deals together and make business happen. But one thing that we've seen in this report is a bit of a return to more regional influences. So as we look to the GTA, Toronto area, and Vancouver, there's similarities there. But then we get to Alberta and Saskatchewan, which, quite frankly, it's Alberta and Saskatchewan's time to shine in the sun, and great commercial activity going on there. Calgary, interestingly enough, the downtown commercial conversion to residential, exciting stuff, leading the country. And so, yeah, it's just across the country, there's lots going on.
So what does that, first of all, tell you about what's happening out there in the economy in general? And also maybe talk a little bit about like what are the factors behind I guess this kind of healthy activity in that market?
Well, I think overall there's strong confidence in the Canadian economy right now. And yes, there's been this fear of recession, but that seems to be abating somewhat right now, overall. And so there's an overall excitement in the commercial sector, and industrial is leading the way in that area with retail strong. The only dark cloud, so to speak, or softness that's there is in the office sector. And we know that all businesses are looking at that. Now, of course, RBC in Toronto just called everybody back into the office here a couple of weeks ago. But even in that, there's a strong segment that's hybrid. Calling them back means you got to come in 1 to 2 days a week. and so and so the office sector, and we look at Toronto, Montreal. I was just in Montreal. The construction going on downtown there with office buildings is certainly not for the faint of wallet, given where trending is going. But you look at commercial investment; it's certainly long term, and so that what's trending, businesses will adapt as well. But yeah, so that's really the picture there. In retail, with foot traffic returning, malls becoming popular again. Uh, and we look at the complementary now, how retailers are going to the online side, but we still want to go in and try those pair of seven shoes on because not all size sevens are the same, right?
Yeah.
And so there's this complementary thing going on.
And the complementary thing, when you talk about retail and its push to e-commerce, right, fuels the growth of the industrial sector, where you got all these massive distribution and warehouse centers across the country. The Amazons and the Walmarts of the world, have built like crazy over the last few years, right?
Exactly. And so that's what's driving this industrial sector right now. And there's a lack of inventory availability out there. So speed to market is a key, and dealing with municipal regulations. Now, Alberta, Calgary, Edmonton are well positioned there. They're one of the fastest municipal regulation kind of environments out there compared to Vancouver, and Toronto's a nightmare. So yeah.
Oh, and I laugh because if you talk to the people based in Calgary, they'll tell you like they're frustrated about the approval process. So
Uh,
it's all
they
relative.
know about their partners out in the Toronto market. Yeah.
So, we talked, you mentioned the office sector. It's still challenged out there, and it's both challenged for the suburban areas, downtown areas. However, the downtown is still the spot that is kind of most difficult these days. One of the things, and as you mentioned, Calgary has been leading the way with downtown office conversions, turning that space into residential primarily. Actually, I think all the projects in Calgary are all rental. Is that a trend that you're going to continue to see, do you think, across the country, not just Calgary, but across the country when it comes to the downtown office space?
Yeah, it's going to be a growing trend. There are challenges around that, of course, the way the buildings are built and constructed and what
Yeah.
their highest and best use is. And certainly more on the rental side of the market, which is critical. I mean, there's no doubt. And of course, that leads us to the multifamily segment of commercial, which is really doing well
Yeah.
because of housing shortages. But you look at downtown Calgary, uh, a head office city has suffered lots of buildings, and vacant space. But I'm going to draw a couple comparisons here. Vancouver, which really is not a head office city, commercial office space, but a big residential component downtown historically. Toronto moved that way, I'd say, started seriously about 20 years ago and revitalized the financial sector with residential, bringing, like 24-hour people, because you used to be able to shoot a cannon down Bay Street. Calgary is similar, just a little later in the game. And so the downtown area needs that revitalization, needs to bring some residential more so down to it to give strength then to the retail, to the dining sector, the entertainment value, and all that. And that's really exciting for Calgary. So I think there's some great positivity there.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the multifamily. As before leaving, you want to ask you about that. Whether it's conversions, whether it's purpose-built rentals, we're seeing that multifamily market's very strong these days across the country. Why is that?
Well, there's a housing shortage more than anything, and strong immigration into the country. And typically, when we look at that strong immigration, that's where they're going to go to first.
Yeah.
But we have a challenge in the entire country, whether that's basic shelter, multifamily purpose-built rentals, or getting into home titled ownership situations, whether that's strata condominiums to single family detached. There's a housing shortage across. So you look at the multifamily purpose-built sector, it's now coming back. We've needed, you got to stimulate that a little because the cost to build is so high.
Yeah.
And the ROI simply hasn't been there until recently, because we've seen an increase in occupancy costs or rentals for multifamily.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then that makes it more attractive for the investment, but we needed some government stimulation there. CMHC started that a little over a year ago. So that is starting to bear some fruit. And so now there's some taxation benefit along with income revenue to make it all come together and make sense.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks very much, Elton, for joining us today.
You're welcome. Great to be with you.
All right, that was Elton Ash, Executive Vice President of RE/MAX Canada. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Managing Editor of Canada's podcast, Taking Care of Business Today. Thanks for joining us.